Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of This Week with India AI with me, Sindhuja, and my colleague Jibu. Jibu, I hope everything is good at your end. I know you're currently based at Kerala, and the nature gods aren't being too kind right now. And how are things with you?
Well, Sindhuja, it's a complicated situation, right? Like I was telling my friends, is it possible for me to go into a cryogenic sleep and put an alert that I will wake up after 2020? That will be the one thing I am looking forward to now,
Oh, God,
because it's
seriously.
one thing after another. We got already have COVID, then we have a case of landslide which killed around 50 people. I mean, 50 people. That's the dead bodies we have found so far. Then we had an airplane crash, that's another 20 casualties. We already have been experiencing some rough weather in the coastal line,
Mm.
because of the sea. And now we got a non-stop raining. So we are at the verge of what people are calling Kerala flood 2020 or the flood 3.0.
Yeah, and we're
So
just in August, by the way. We still have another 4 months to go.
God, yeah, and I am
This,
like wondering what will go wrong next. You can't figure out. I mean, if we end up having a third world war with Kim Jong Un or someone like that, hitting a nuclear bomb, I won't be surprised. It's been such a year.
it's a very 2020 expectation, Anything can happen. We
Yeah,
just have to keep our minds open.
even with the innovations we speak, right? I mean,
Mm.
we generally speak about innovations in AI and technology. Even in the innovation spectrum in AI, things are in the things are taking a little bit evilish persona. I want to use that word, right?
Uh-huh.
Even we saw things like Elon Musk, publicly acknowledging about the coup in Bolivia, right?
That's
In
right.
his Twitter, and we have the Senate hearing of the big tech happening. It's so in this light, one of the biggest landmark point in AI this year, which was the release of GPT-3,
Hmm.
and now that also doesn't that makes me more cautious than confident about technology at this point.
Do tell me more a little bit about
Okay,
GB333
yeah,
and why do you have reservations about it?
right. So if you go back, I mean, let's say the modern AI, had an explosion, after 90s, or like let's say after 2000, when the data became available, and thanks to Moore's law, the hardware became more efficient.
Mm.
Now, what happened was the rock star, or like say in a rock band, the lead singer of the AI technologies was computer vision, right?
Yeah,
Thanks to ImageNet, which ImageNet and things like that.
right.
So for everyone, computer vision was the fancy thing, speaking about image recognition, optical character recognition. I mean, I remember I regularly use a application called Evernote, and
Mm.
the optical character recognition in that application was so good, even like back 2010. So that was the main thing happening, right? Even if you remember, I mean, it's been a long time since Facebook and Google Photos started to, tag the people we know in the photos. So then what happened? I think by 2013, if I'm correct, NLP started to pick up. So NLP was always like the Ringo Ringo of the band.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, my favorite is McCartney. So I don't care for Lennon, but yeah. So so yeah. So NLP has
Popular
been the
choice. It's
Ringo of
okay.
the. So yeah, but by 2013 there had been some innovations happening, right? One of the main thing was called this development of something called the attention architecture. So how NLP works? I mean, NLP, whether if our readers doesn't know, it's natural language processing. So translation, voice to text, speech to, okay, that's same thing, but yeah, text to speech, everything happens through NLP, right? Anything
Yeah.
that has to do with the language. So normally, what happens is you have to, recurring neural networks. One is an encoder and one is a decoder, and it was easy in the early days, right? Write something like, "My name is Jibu," and if you want to translate it to Hindi, "Mera naam Jibu hai."
Mm.
I think that's correct. Yeah. So that happens. It was a fairly direct process. Now, if you add more things, right? My name is Jibu and I am of 33 years old.
Mm.
Then the problem is this. neural network got confused. It lost its focus. Let's put it that way, right?
Mm.
So it won't translate it exactly the same way, right? I mean, if you try Google Translate in the early days, you will pretty much have experienced this issue.
Mm.
Now, what attention architecture made possible was, give priority on the sentence structure, right? Where to focus, how to go about this encoding and decoding, right? I mean,
Mm.
what happens is, you take the content, right? You encode it, encode it to a vector, then you process it, right? Then you decode from the vector, that's how it happens. Now, what happened in after that, the major breakthrough happened in 2018. So till now, still, NLP is a ringo, and what happened is, Google did a breakthrough, something called BERT. Yeah. So what happened is, by like 2018, BERT came out, right? BERT is created something called transformers. Now, this is the like the landmark moment. This is the ImageNet equivalent. So by 2018, Google came up with this NLP training program called BERT, or a bidirectional encoder representation from transformers.
Mm.
Now you have something called transformers, which now the transformer based architecture was established. So what happens is, instead of translating or processing a phrase or a sentence by it, in case of transformers, you do it in multiple, you do it simultaneously. So what happened is, transformers provided these NLP models which better capability, right? I mean, unlike the attention architecture,
Mm.
what is now happens is, we are using a technique called parallelization. Now, multiple neural network encoders and decoders can work together, right? They can understand key elements of sentences like speech tags, dependencies, semantic roles, correlations, and other things, right?
Mm.
And so this created a new way of, provided NLP models with a new way to process whole sentences or sequences of sentences at once. So that's how the landmark happened. And then, based on this architecture, GPT came out from OpenAI, which was back then an research firm established to save humanity from the evil clutches of AI. Elon Musk was one of the co-founders.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
GPT-1 was interesting. It was trained on 110 million parameters. It was interesting. Then
Mm.
GPT-2 came out, and then that's where things started to get serious, right? It was trained on 1.5 billion parameters, and Elon Musk started to sense the evilish side creeping up inside, an organization he himself started, because Sam Altman and others of OpenAI want this product to be a commercial tool,
Mm.
and Elon Musk, fearing that these tools can be misused, he doesn't want them to be made publicly available. And
Right.
as a result, Elon Musk left OpenAI, and now OpenAI has a commercial arm, right? Now comes GPT-3. So GPT-2 itself was very scary. We have written articles about it. We have pretty much made GPT-2 to write articles for us. Now GPT-3 came, and if GPT-3 one, the scary one, was trained on 1.5 billion parameters. Now the
Mm.
GPT-3 was trained on an autoregressive language, was trained on 175 billion parameters. Now, like
Okay.
that, 10 times more than any previous language model. It's like pretty much trained on the whole internet. You can say it like that. Now, what happens is, GPT-3 is so good, it doesn't need much training. So that's the key part of GPT. You know,
Right.
so normally you need to feed any NLP, any model or any model, data, and train it to get to a level of competency. For example, if you want an NLP program to write an article, write a novel like Jerome K. Jerome, you have to feed it all the Jerome K. Jerome novel, so that it will understand. Then it can create. But with the GPT-3, it needs very minimal input, right? You
Mm.
need to give it one or two samples, and boom, it is writing stories like Jerome K. Jerome.
Right.
So now that's a scary situation. Now the thing about GPT-3 is, unlike GPT-2, which pretty much you give it a prompt and it completed the whole prompt based on its imagination. GPT-3 can like vary its language, right? If I want to write a, like, make a suicide note written by Sindhuja, it will do that, right? I know it's a very bad example. Hope your husband won't come and kick my ass, but I will, I will like, I will extract some of the articles you published in India AI, right? I need like two or three. Then I will
Mm.
feed it to GPT, and then I will tell it, okay, write a suicide letter by Sindhuja, I like Sindhuja, and it will create a convincing suicide letter, right?
That's terrifying. That's absolutely
Yeah.
terrifying. The fact that, there's so much, and especially with writers like us, there's so much of our material available online. It's that easy, right, to really create like a very evil replica of what we're capable of doing.
And one of the things why I was confident, like we spoke about the Microsoft situation where AI was, stealing jobs or replacing the edit curators, is like, AI is not gonna replace me because I have over the years, or let's say, I don't know if I count as a genetically, I come from a family of professional storytellers from my mother's side,
Mm.
so
Hmm.
it can't replicate my language style, it can't replicate the typos I make, it can't replicate the level of the narrative style I created, or whatever that is.
Yeah, sure.
But there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
point where, yeah, give it two articles by Jibu, it will write better than me. Except that it will not make any grammar mistakes or typos as I do. So this is what GPT-3 is, and it's still in
Mm.
a beta. That's the scariest thing. And few
Mm.
people were given access to this beta. Now these people played around with and created some interesting tools. One of the tools I tried out, something which was tried out by Facebook's head of AI, Jerome Pesandi, is a tool that created to create, to generate tweets. So if I give a prompt, let's say I give a prompt from Bangalore, it will create a tweet for me based on
Mm.
Bangalore.
Right,
So
got it.
it's very harmless, but it pretty much captures the power of GPT 3. But where it got scary was, as a curious person I am, I started giving even people like Kasandi was giving it things like black, and Jews and all these terms, and it was creating very biased, very what to say, very unsettling tweets.
Hmm.
And I gave few of the examples we gave were on Black Lives Matter or Muslims, things like that, right? The minorities or anything that can be, that I was wondering, how it was. And to my shock, every tweet it generated for the prompt I gave Muslim, it was extremely Islamophobic. And
Wow. Mm.
that was like the biggest shock. So we reached a point where, uh, you know, even if I don't belong to that religion, but I felt so uncomfortable putting it in our stories because it crossed the line. So now this is a question, right? This is the tool you are going to sell it to law firms where it will write, it will pretty much, these firms will automate it to write, write whatever legal things required, or even used in policy making. And now this tool is biased, right? How can you, make this tool available? How can you make this tool commercial? And what will be the overall impact of such bias tool out there in
Yeah.
the market? I mean, the OpenAI team is working to fix this bias, but it's a very sad reality. Something resonates with the conversation I had with one of the CTOs of IB, Subram Narajan, last day, and he was telling AI is another tool in human's hand, right? It will act like human. It will
Yeah.
act depends on how the human is.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think you've brought up some very valid points about the efficacy of technology. I mean, I don't know about, I don't know if you watched this show called Person of Interest, but I'm sort of watching a lot of episodes that I had, seen a while back. And when it
Yeah.
was launched at the time, it seemed like impossible. The fact that there is a machine that throws up a social security number, and there are these two
Yep.
vigilantes, in a sense, who are trying to stop crime and save as many people as they can in New York from getting hurt. Today, in this particular context, when you see a machine like that, I think there is one thing is, of course, the awe and the amazement that you feel watching a machine do something so impeccably and constantly and continuously keep surveilling and churning numbers out. But there is also a very clear ethical angle to it because they are constantly working with law enforcement officials, and that's what we need to keep reminding ourselves, right? I mean, this is a product of what the human mind can do. This is essentially trying to mimic what a human brain is capable of. So
Hmm.
obviously there are, and if it has to survive in an environment built by humans for humans, then we have to keep in mind that there are some societal and cultural sort of norms and guardrails that has to be put into. So I think that's going to be the focus as well. For this month, in terms of our stories, we're going to be exploring a lot of great topics in the theme of ethics and responsibility in terms of building AI
Exactly.
and machine learning ecosystems. So I think we've literally just sort of scraped the surface, if you ask me. There's so much more that one needs to cover. But yeah, I
And
think the discussion about GPT-3 is just the start, if you ask me.
and since you mentioned the policing part, I mean, I used to be a big fan of a person of interest myself.
Yeah,
Few of my favorites. You got Jonathan Nolan, who is the brother of Christopher Nolan, who
that's
writes
right.
scripts
Yeah,
for his movies, and you
yeah,
got J.J. Abrams. I
yeah.
love J.J. Abrams except for his overuse of flyers in his movies. But yeah, so it was a great show. But now we are have what we are seeing is that these facial recognition programs, right?
Mm.
Used by law enforcement, these facial recognition programs started to show so much bias. For
Mm.
example, there are studies which says it shows so much but false positives, especially in case of black people and other minority ethnic
Yeah,
groups
yeah,
in countries like
absolutely.
US.
Yeah.
So now you are asking it to look at a criminal A, and who is a black person, and it will identify a person B and say it is the same person.
Mm.
And where are we going to, I mean, if you don't know identity of both these people, right? Let's say it's a shootout caught in a security camera, something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's going to affect a lot of these people's lives. And this week, this Friday, we are having our webinar, which will be looking at the mitigating facial recognition bias. And one of our speaker is an incredible lady. She's doing an incredible work by putting the issues of facial recognition in Indian context. Richa
Okay.
Singh, a professor from IIT Jodhpur. So just go to INDIAai website and go to events, and you can find the link to join the webinar on Friday.
Yeah, this is a webinar I definitely don't want to miss. I think it's going to give a lot more perspective in terms of, how the future of AI really looks. And, it's interesting, Jigu. I think, we've gotten to a point today where you and I are actually having a podcast about the banalities of AI and the way it can actually sort of be detrimental. And I mean, all the good, bad, and the ugly aside, I think it's important to take pause for a minute and just think of the fact that we have AI systems with infrastructure that is so robust that we can actually look at various kinds of data sets and try to segregate which is good, bad, and ugly. And the only reason this is possible is because of something called high performance computing, right? And I think we are in an age right now where we have we're no longer dealing with CPUs. We've moved on to the age of GPUs or graphical processing units. And this is in fact one of the stories that I had the privilege of covering. Last week I spoke with Mr. Vishal Dhupar, who is the managing director of NVIDIA South Asia. Now, of course, NVIDIA is a company that most people are synonymous with when it comes to microprocessors and when it comes to especially the gaming market more than anything else. But what I think a lot of people don't understand or don't know is that NVIDIA is very, very significant player in the AI space as well. So ever since the company was incorporated, ever since the company came into being in 1993, it was co-founded by three people, including Jensen Huang, who's still the CEO, has been and continues to be. I think their entire mantra really was we just have to sort of continue to learn and continue to sort of continue to be at the best at what we do. And this fundamental, I think, approach to problem solving is what has kept NVIDIA ahead of its time. So they were the leader of the PC gaming market. Then they went on to parallel computing, and now it's at AI. So
I'm hearing rumors that they are even looking to buy ARM, the
yeah,
British
that's true. That
chip.
is that is just a rumor. Obviously, the leadership is not going to comment on that. But yes, there's definitely talks of them trying to buy out ARM for a little over 30 billion. But that at this point stays as speculation. But yeah, we'll know soon enough in a couple of weeks. I do have some some insights into that. So hopefully in a couple of weeks we should be able to have probably more information on this. But it's very interesting if you actually sort of look at NVIDIA as just a company and just see the suite of products and solutions they are developing. You know what? As a technology journalist, that itself can be a beat in my opinion, because it is mind-boggling the amount of products, the amount of solutions that this company is really churning out on a regular basis. They have some cutting edge data center technology, GPU architecture, high speed computing, which is essentially bringing the data center to the edge. And one might ask, what are these? What does this have to do with AI? It has everything to do with AI, because if you in a country like India with more than 1 billion people, and if we are trying to digitize every aspect of our lives, right from healthcare to agriculture to smart governance to the way we work, remote work, everything, it has to be on the basis, on the foundation of an extremely fast computing system and a computing infrastructure, and that is something that NVIDIA is able to offer. So it's important that we talk about the infrastructure as well when it comes to making computing possible, because without that we would not be having this conversation today about BERT and about GPT-3 and all of everything else that we've been speaking about, right, in a sense. And what's interesting is that I think the leadership at NVIDIA also is able to see that India is a very high potential market, because they have they have AI goals set for India. It's like a 360-degree approach to, foster more collaboration. And one of the many aspects of this is just continuous engagement with this AI ecosystem, something that even we are doing back here at INDIAai. So, they are extensively engaged with policymakers. They work with a lot of government organizations. They're also having some very key relationships with research and academia in India. So, for instance, NVIDIA and IIT Hyderabad, more recently in July, in fact, entered a partnership to set up India's first AI technology center. And this will be with the goal to accelerate research in AI. A similar partnership was actually struck with IIT Jodhpur to launch the Center for Next Generation AI Research, with the aim of pioneering research and development in AI for healthcare, agri, public infrastructure, and the likes. They're also working with CDAC to actually conduct these GPU application hackathons, which is again a very one of a kind activity that's happening in India at such a mass level. They're doing this along with IISER in Pune, OpenAC, as well as of course NVIDIA, which are all trying to essentially foster a community of developers using hybrid CPU and GPU systems to solve problems at scale. And even during COVID, they were quick to sort of pivot and put together a task force, which is essentially a consortium of US lawmakers, healthcare specialists, to really, and of course, specialists from NVIDIA to really try to put together their capabilities and figure out how AI can really help solving this healthcare crisis at large. And even, I don't know if many people know about this, but in association again with CDAC, METI, NVIDIA and OpenAccount, they actually did the Samhar COVID-19 hackathon, which was to help research combat the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and help the scientific community prevent such future outbreaks. So there's a lot. This is just pretty much just a gist of what the company is doing in India. But India is definitely a huge market for NVIDIA. They are very bullish about it. They have a lot more plans in the pipeline for a country like India, which has very lofty AI goals, and they hope to be the leaders in being able to provide that kind of infrastructure that will help India become a very, very robust AI player in the years to come.
That's interesting, Sandhuja. I mean, NVIDIA will be playing a bigger role going forward.
Yep.
Especially with if they get hold of the ARM technology, it will be
Yeah.
a whole game changer. Right now, we are hearing even Apple is gonna switch to ARM based Apple Silicon for the upcoming MacBooks. I mean, I pretty much for the last 3 months I've been working out of an iPad which has an A12 Bionic chip, which is much powerful than any of the laptop chips out there. It beats the hell out of an Intel i7.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see what will happen. And I mean, we don't want to leave our audience with the doomsday scenario of GPT-3 starting a world war, which actually we wrote a article on that. What will happen if GPT-2 can start a world war. But
Yeah.
we have some good things also, right? I think Sandhuja did an incredible work on covering one of the interesting startups, STEMpedia, right? Can you please
That's right.
elaborate on that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, just to give our listeners a little bit of context, I'm sure everyone would have heard of the deal of the week, which was Byju's acquiring the edtech startup Byju's, of course, acquiring White Hat Junior for 300 million, which is not only the biggest buy, which is the biggest acquisition made by Byju's, but also is one of the most significant acquisitions made in the edtech space. Not to mention the fact that
Sindhuja,
this
how much
closely.
money do Byju's have? How much
Oh,
money do
I
Byju's
see. They
have?
crossed the valuation of 1 billion like well before the others did, and they've just been
Right.
closing, series of funding, hereafter. And from what I understand, and you should see the Byju's offices here in Bangalore. They're an
I've
impressive
been to
lot.
Byju's
Oh,
office. I've been
it's
to
very
Byju's office.
impressive.
I has had a conversation with I think Ranjit Radhakrishnan, who is one of
Yeah,
the
that's right.
CEOs.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's like they are everywhere, right? They are advertising Indian cricket team, cricket series. They got they robbed in Shah Rukh Khan. Now they robbed in Mohanlal. They reminds me of the early days of Uber. With a pretty much unlimited war chest. Because of SoftBank investment back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, I think what sets apart a company like a Byju's from, say, maybe an Uber is just the fact that while on one hand they have all the marketing muscle, they're also very tuned in with what the needs of the ecosystem really are in the days to come. And I think this particular acquisition is very interesting right on the heels of the national education policy, which specifically talked about how important coding is going to be. And White Hat Juniors is a platform that teaches coding to children, and that's what my startup of the week is about. In fact, there is another company called Stempedia, which was actually a product of three students who graduated from IIT Kanpur, and they put together a platform where they decided, hey, you know what? We love tech. We are engineering nerds, but we weren't always this fascinated with this technology. Maybe it's necessary to instill this level of interest, this level of passion in children. So there, they came out at the problem in a very different way. They decided to make this whole aspect of learning about AI and learning about IoT and sensors and just all the stuff that we talk about with so much fascination today. The idea was to take this as a very, very fascinating story for children to understand at a very young age. And they have these DIY kits, and they have scratch programming for children. They have this entire toolkit that is, you can basically build your own, your own AI systems. You can learn about facial recognition. You can learn about computer vision. You can learn about what machine learning really is all about. Everything is completely in a pictorial visual format, and this is what is being done by this particular startup. And I think it's you have a company like that which is becoming a lot more popular. In fact, ever since COVID started, when I spoke to the co-founder Drupal, he said that their inquiries for their PictoBlocks AI, which is their AI offering, really just went through the roof. I think they've seen a 2x demand, at least, for their DIY home kits ever since COVID started, because parents also, I think, have understood that, right now going through edutech platforms is the best way to keep their children engaged, and so that they don't lose back in terms of the number of hours that they could have essentially used if they were out there in the real world getting upskilled. An acquisition of a company like White Hat Junior for like 300 million, and when you see companies like Stempedia coming out into the open and doing such great work, it just goes to show that we are living in a very futuristic age, and it's all about being prepared and being sort of ahead of your time. And I think you have to start young. I think that's pretty much what it sort of conveys. And the early bird bites the worm. I think this is a fantastic example of that.
It is. It is. I mean, it's quite fascinating. I think education is one of the areas that will be transformed by AI. I mean, we pretty much covered education thoroughly in the month of June, right?
Yeah.
We had a webinar also, a very good one. So it's let's see how it will turn out. But I have I'm a how do you say, I'm a naturally skeptic person. So I also look at the situation where these kind of technology based products can create an inequality in the society as well, right? Not everyone can like let's talk about Byju system. Not everyone can afford a Byju subscription, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even when the whole school education was shifted to television based or smartphone based in the recent months, even here in
Mhm.
Kerala, there was many situations where parents couldn't even. I mean, you have to understand there are families who couldn't even afford smartphones, who doesn't even have a TV at the home, right? Now,
Yeah.
how are they gonna afford a coding package, right? If you don't have him, if you doesn't even have a smartphone, how do you afford a computer? So we have to. I think one of the responsibilities all these startups or as a collective society we need to make sure is this kind of technologies will reach the bottom, right? I mean, I think
Absolutely.
one
No,
of the key,
inclusivity is a huge role, is going
yes.
to play a huge role in making technology that much more, popular, obviously.
So one
Yeah.
of the key visions put forward by the Responsible AI for Youth program is to reach the rural India, right? To reach the
Right.
schools in the tier two, tier three towns as well. So I mean, as much as the technology is fascinating, it's there is always a worrying side. I think our goal is to sit and worry about the fact of the technology this month, at least this month.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, as always, great catching up with you, Sindhuja. We'll
Likewise. And do tell us about what we can expect for the rest of August, and what kind of stories can our listeners really and our readers on India AI really expect in the coming few weeks?
Sure. We have lined up some incredible interviews coming this month, and we are having an incredible two webinars. We will be having professors from IIT contributing as guest authors this month. Plus, we have IIT professors participating in our webinars alongside people from Montreal AI Ethics Institute. So overall, this month the content might not be that straightforward as with agriculture, because ethics, responsible AI, transparency, this can be can have a what's a foggy effect. It can be vague at times. But overall, we our idea is to bring this subject and bring the conversation into the public. Let this be also a part of when you're discussing AI. It should also be a part of the conversation. That's
I
the
couldn't
bigger
agree
idea.
more. I think that's a fantastic way to put it, Jibu. I think as much as we're trying to commercialize AI, it's also equally important to understand the economic implications, the social, the moral implications of technology, which is just scaling so rapidly that, even we are amazed at its potential. On that note, thank you all so much for tuning in to our podcast this week. And as Jibu said, do stay tuned to the rest of the podcasts that we have lined up for you, which are going to be talking about the length and breadth of ethical and responsible AI, at least for the whole month of August. Stay safe, thank you, and take care.